The ambassador's fist slammed the podium, splintering the ancient Zenwood with a crack that silenced the chamber. Ambassador Lyra Voss of the United Terran Alliance stood tall amid the holographic projections of 100 alien delegates, her eyes blazing as the final vote tallied on the central orb. Unanimous. War. The Krell Dominion's accusations of human expansionism had won the day, their fleet already mobilizing beyond the neutral zone. Lyra's voice cut through the stunned hush. "You think this ends with a vote?" "Humanity doesn't kneel." In the shadows of the observation deck, Captain Elias Kane watched the feed on his wrist console, the dim blue glow illuminating the scars across his jaw. His ship, the UNS Vanguard, hummed softly in dry dock above Epsilon Station, a relic of pre-war engineering jury-rigged with human grit. Elias clenched his jaw, the weight of command settling heavier than the artificial gravity. His first officer, Mira Reyes, leaned against the bulkhead beside him, her fingers drumming a silent rhythm on her sidearm. "They're idiots," she muttered, her voice low and edged with the accent of Mars colonies. "Council's been itching for this since we cracked FTL without their patents." Elias didn't respond immediately, his mind racing through contingencies. The Vanguard's crew, 50 souls hand-picked for their unyielding resolve, wasn't built for fleet actions. She was a scout frigate, fast and mean, designed for the voids where alliances frayed. But now, with the Council's declaration rippling out to every relay, every human outpost would light up like targets. He tapped his comm. "All hands, battle stations. Reyes, get engineering on the fusion coils. We're not waiting for orders." Mira nodded, her cautious nature yielding to the fire in his eyes. She'd seen him pull miracles from worse odds, like the belt skirmish where he'd turned a mining drone into a breaching charge. Alarms blared as the station's docking clamps released with a metallic groan, the Vanguard slipping free into the starfield. Lyra's face reappeared on the console, patched through from the chamber below. "Captain, they're sealing the exits. Your ship's the closest armed vessel. Buy us time." Her words carried the weight of desperation, but her tone was steel. She'd argued for hours, her wit dismantling half the delegates' lies before the vote turned. Elias glanced at the tactical overlay. 3 Krell corvettes vectoring in, their energy signatures flaring like predators scenting blood. "Time's the one thing we're short on, Ambassador. Hold the line down there." The bridge thrummed with activity as Elias strode in, the crew snapping to positions with practiced efficiency. Ensign Tariq Voss, Lyra's nephew, all sharp intellect and quiet bravery, manned the weapons console, his fingers flying over the interfaces. "Shields at full, sir, but their beams outrange us by 20%. Elias gripped the command rail, the ship shuddering as the first Krell warning shot grazed their hull, a lance of plasma scoring the void. "Then we get in close. Helm evasive pattern Delta, make them chase." The Vanguard surged forward, engines roaring defiance into the black. Mira's voice crackled from engineering. "Coils are hot, but if we push her like this, we'll burn out in an hour." Elias knew the risk. The ship's heart was a patchwork of human innovation, fusion tech salvaged from wrecks and improved in hidden labs. One overload and they'd be drifting hulks. But retreat meant abandoning Lyra and the station, dooming the fragile human enclaves to the Council's mercy. "An hour's all we need," he replied, his grit an anchor for the crew. The Krell formation tightened, their ship's elegant curves belying the brutality of their approach. But Elias spotted the flaw. They flew in rigid formation, predictable as clockwork. Tariq's console pinged. "Incoming barrage, evasion window closing." The bridge lights flickered under the strain, stars streaking past viewports as the Vanguard danced through the fire. Elias's mind sharpened to the moment, every choice a thread in the web of survival. Humanity had built empires from scraps. Now they'd forge victory from violence chosen by fools. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the bridge shuddered again, the low rumble of incoming missiles vibrating through the hull of the UNS Vanguard. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, but her crew moved like a well-oiled machine, fingers flying over consoles, voices clipped and urgent over the comms. "Shields at 70%, reported Lieutenant Rao from Tactical, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display where red icons swarmed like angry hornets. "They're probing us, ma'am. Testing for weak points." Elena nodded, her jaw set. The Krell Collective's declaration had come just hours ago, broadcast across every human frequency, Unanimous vote for subjugation, their fleet materializing on the edge of Sol like a storm cloud. No negotiations, no warnings, just the cold logic of a council that saw humanity's expansion as an infestation. But Elena had seen the vids from the outer colonies, the burned-out husks of ships that didn't yield fast enough. Grit your teeth, she thought. Show them what unanimous really means.
Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7, she ordered, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut.
Ensign Patel twisted the controls and the Vanguard banked hard, inertial dampeners whining as G-forces pressed against their restraints. A missile streaked past close enough that the proximity klaxon wailed before silencing. Good work. Rao, counterfire, target their lead cruiser. Let's remind them we're not sitting ducks. The tactical officer's fingers danced, launching a salvo of railgun slugs that punched through the void. On the main screen, the Krell ship's shields flared blue, absorbing the hits, but Elena caught the flicker, a momentary dip. They weren't invincible. Direct hit on their forward array, Rao confirmed, a rare grin cracking his usually stoic face. Scanners show minor damage. From the engineering station, Chief Harlan grunted over the intercom. Engines are holding, Captain, but if they keep hammering us like this, we'll need that refit we never got. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd patched too many hull breaches with spit and prayers. Elena appreciated the honesty. No sugarcoating in her engine room. The bridge door hissed open and Dr. Miriam Locke strode in, her lab coat fluttering like a flag of defiance. As the xenobiologist turned reluctant advisor, she clutched a tablet glowing with intercepted data. Captain, I've cracked part of their comms protocol. It's not just aggression, it's ritualistic. The Council's vote binds them. Backing down means dishonor. Her eyes, sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, met Elena's. They're committed, all 12 species. Elena leaned forward, the chair creaking under her. Then so are we. Patch it through to Fleet Command. If this is war, we make it ours. As the first real exchange of fire lit up the stars, she felt the shift. Not fear, but the raw surge of resolve. Humanity didn't start this, but damn if they wouldn't finish it. The Vanguard's cannons thrummed again, a symphony of retribution echoing into the black. Outside, the Krell formation tightened, their wedge-shaped vessels gleaming with predatory intent. But Elena's mind raced ahead, plotting vectors, alliances, the thousand small ways humans turned desperation into dominance. One ship, one crew, but they were the tip of the spear. Lieutenant Rao swiveled in his seat. Incoming transmission, ma'am. From the Krell flagship. They're demanding surrender. Elena's laugh was short, bitter. Tell them we're fresh out of those. And Rao, arm the nukes. The bridge fell silent for a beat, then erupted into focused action. The cost was already mounting. A damaged sensor array, 2 crewmen injured in the last hit. But as the stars streaked by, Elena knew the real stakes. Every life, every world, hung on moments like this. Unanimous? They'd deliver it in spades. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the bridge shuddered under another plasma barrage. Alarms blared, red lights strobing across the faces of her crew. Status on the forward shields? She barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Lieutenant Raj Patel, her tactical officer, wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over his console. Holding at 40%, Captain. That last hit from the Krell cruiser nearly breached us. They're flanking. 2 more signatures inbound. Elena nodded sharply, her mind racing through the tactical overlay projected on the main view screen. The Krell fleet had ambushed them in the neutral sector of Epsilon Eridani, their massive biomechanical ships twisting through the void like living serpents. What started as a diplomatic escort mission had devolved into a slaughter when the Alien Council's declaration of war hit the comms, unilateral, uncompromising. Humanity's outposts were glassed, colonies burning, but here in the debris field of a shattered mining station, the UNS Vanguard was the first to draw blood back. Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7, Elena ordered. Ensign Kira Novak, the young pilot with a reputation for ice calm under fire, didn't hesitate. The ship lurched, thrusters firing in a corkscrew that slung them behind a tumbling asteroid fragment. The Krell bolt scorched past, vaporizing a chunk of rock instead. They're adapting, muttered Chief Engineer Thomas Ruiz from his auxiliary station, his wiry frame tense as he rerouted power. Thomas was the cautious one, always double-checking schematics, but today his grit shone through the worry lines on his face. Their bioshields are modulating frequencies. We hit them hard with the railguns earlier, but they're regenerating. Elena leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen where 3 Krell vessels loomed, their hulls pulsing with organic veins. The Council's vote had been unanimous: subjugate the primitive humans or erase them. But humanity didn't bow, not after centuries of scraping by on a hostile galaxy's edge. Raj, target the lead ship's ventral node. That's their weak point. Fire everything we've got. Aye, Captain. Raj's confirmation was steady, but Elena caught the flicker of doubt in his dark eyes. The Vanguard was a frigate, outgunned and outnumbered. One wrong move, and they'd join the station's ghosts. Torpedoes streaked from the launchers, the railgun coils humming to life with a deep thrum that vibrated through the deck. The projectile slammed into the Krell cruiser, breaching its shield in a bloom of superheated gas. The alien ship convulsed, tendrils lashing out in futile retaliation before it split apart, debris scattering like confetti in the stars. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short and fierce, Kira pumping a fist, Thomas exhaling a rare grin. But Elena held up a hand. Don't celebrate yet. Sensors picking up reinforcements. 2 destroyers warping in from the outer belt. The view screen updated, showing the new threats. Hulking behemoths bristling with spines, closing fast. Elena's jaw tightened. The plan had been to punch through and link up with the fleet at Rigel, but this trap was tightening. We're not dying out here, not today. As the Krell closed, Elena felt the weight of it all. The colonies lost, the families waiting on Earth, the unspoken promise she'd made to her crew. They were the tip of the spear, and the galaxy was about to learn what human resolve really meant. The first shots from the destroyers lit the void, and the Vanguard dove back into the fray, engines screaming defiance. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the throttle, her fingers white against the worn leather wrap as the Viper's engines roared to life. Alarms blared in the cockpit, red lights flashing across the HUD like angry fireflies. Below, the alien fleet's blockade shimmered in the void, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight into blinding spears. Hold steady, Reyes, she barked into the comms, her voice cutting through the static. We punch through or we die trying. Reyes, her wingman, and the squad's resident hotshot chuckled from the adjacent fighter, a sound too casual for the hell unfolding. Copy that, Cap, just like that sim back on Mars. Except this time, the bad guys shoot back with plasma that melts hulls. His Viper danced left, evading a preliminary scan beam that lanced out from the nearest enemy cruiser. The Galactics had underestimated human reflexes. Their ships moved like bloated whales, predictable in their arrogance. Elena's squadron, 8 pilots, the best the UN had scraped together after the Council's declaration, formed up in a tight wedge. Intelligence had been sparse. The Xeno Council, a patchwork of species from the Orion Arm, had voted unanimously for pacification of Sol system. No diplomats, no warnings, just a fleet amassing at the jump point. Humanity's response? The Hammerfall Initiative. Retrofitted freighters turned gunships, AI-assisted targeting, and pilots who'd grown up dodging asteroids in the belt. The lead enemy vessel, a hulking behemoth called a Vorath by recon drones, fired first. A barrage of kinetic slugs erupted, silent in vacuum but painting fiery trails on her sensors. Elena yanked the stick, her Viper rolling inverted as rounds zipped past close enough to rattle the frame. Evasive pattern Delta. Flankin' Harry, she squeezed the trigger, unleashing a stream of railgun projectiles that sparked against the Vorath shields. Blue energy rippled, absorbing the hits, but her squad's combined fire chipped away, forcing the cruiser to divert power. In the chaos, Lieutenant Kira Singh's voice crackled over the net, laced with that unflappable calm she reserved for do-or-die moments. Shields at 70% on target Alpha. My birds are drawing fire. Get in close, Vasquez. Singh was the cautious one, always plotting vectors 3 moves ahead, her fighter a ghost in the formation. Elena nodded to herself, banking hard toward the breach. The aliens' formation was textbook. Layered defenses, no improvisation. Humans thrived on the improv. A proximity alert screamed. 2 interceptors peeling off to intercept her. Sleek needle-nosed things with pulsing energy cores. Elena's targeting AI locked on, but she overrode it, trusting gut over code. She feinted high, then dove, her Viper's thrusters flaring as she slipped under one's firing arc. Reyes whooped, his guns shredding the second interceptor in a burst of debris. That's one for the highlight reel. But triumph soured fast. The Vorath adapted, unleashing a wave of drones. swarms of glittering motes that fanned out like angry hornets. Elena's countermeasures deployed in a haze of chaff, buying seconds, but one drone latched onto her tail, its laser carving into the engine nacelle. Heat spiked. Warnings wailed. "Reyes, cover me! Sing, vector support!" The squad tightened, a ballet of fire and thrust. Sing's calculated burst thinned the swarm, her voice steady. "Drones neutralized. But Cap, their reinforcements are jumping in, 3 more heavies. We can't hold the lane." Elena felt the weight of it, the math not lying. The blockade was cracking, but at what cost? Already 2 pilots were ghosts, vaporized in the opening salvo, their IFF signals flatlining without a word. She gritted her teeth, plotting a desperate gambit. The Viper's cargo bay, modded for this op, held the payload. A cluster of EMP warheads human-engineered to fry Xeno shields without the fallout of nukes. "All units form on me. We're going for the kill shot." No speeches, just action. The fleet loomed larger, a wall of inevitability, but Elena saw the seam. The Vorath's ventral array, underpowered from the drone launch. Reyes fell in beside her, engines straining. "Crazy as hell, Cap, but I'm in." Sing hesitated a beat, then aligned. Vectors synced. "On your mark." Elena marked it. The squadron surged forward, a spear of defiance into the heart of the storm. Slugs and beams crisscrossed the void, but they pressed on, humanity's answer etched in every maneuver. Not surrender, but the unanimous delivery of what was coming. The Vorath filled her canopy, shields flickering under the assault. 1 hit, that's all they needed. The cost? Already paid in blood, but the lane would open, or they'd burn trying. Sergeant Kira Voss gripped the bulkhead as the dropship shuddered through the alien atmosphere, her knuckles white against the worn metal. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, painting the cabin red while the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Incoming fire. Brace for evasive." Below, the crystalline spires of Zorath Prime loomed like jagged teeth, the invader's stronghold pulsing with defensive energy shields that lit the night in eerie blue. Kira glanced at her squad. 8 Marines, faces set in grim determination, their exosuits humming faintly. Private Thomas Ruiz, the wiry comms specialist with a perpetual smirk, checked his rifle's charge for the 3rd time. Beside him, Corporal Lena Hart, broad-shouldered and unflinching, murmured a quiet prayer into her helmet mic, her faith a steady anchor in the chaos. And there was Doc Ellis, the medic, methodically distributing stim packs, his hands steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. They were the tip of humanity's spear, dropped into the heart of the enemy to sabotage the Zorathian command nexus before the fleet arrived. 2 minutes to LZ, the pilot announced, banking hard as plasma bolts streaked past. The ship bucked and Kira felt the G-forces press her into the harness. She unstrapped early, floating for a moment in the low-grav descent before the artificial pull reasserted. "Remember the plan," she said, her voice cutting through the din. "We hit the shield generator, plant the charges, and exfil before their ground forces swarm. No heroics, we get out alive." Thomas snorted, clipping a breaching tool to his belt. "Plan? Last time we planned, the bugs adapted in 30 seconds flat. I'm betting we improvised by minute 5. Lena shot him a glare. "Optimism suits you, Ruiz, just don't jinx it." Her fingers flexed around her pulse rifle, the weapon's hum a comforting vibration against her palm. Doc Ellis handed her a pack, his eyes meeting Kira's with a nod. Unspoken trust forged in a dozen skirmishes. The dropship lurched, engines screaming as it evaded a fresh volley. Through the viewport, Kira caught a glimpse of the surface. Vast plateaus of iridescent rock dotted with Zorathian walkers that scuttled like oversized insects, their legs carving furrows in the terrain. The aliens had chosen this world as their staging ground, underestimating humanity's resolve after the Council's declaration of total war. But Kira's team knew the stakes. Fail here, and the orbital assault would shatter against those shields, costing thousands of lives. "Touchdown in 10, the pilot grunted. The ship slammed into the ground, hydraulics absorbing the impact with a bone-rattling jolt. Ramp hissed open, and Kira was first out, boots crunching on crystalline shards that glittered under the twin moons. The air was thin, laced with ozone from the shields overhead, and the distant thunder of artillery rolled like an approaching storm. They moved in a tight wedge, Kira leading, scanner in one hand, rifle in the other. The Nexus loomed half a click away, a towering obelisk of alien tech wreathed in defensive turrets. Thomas fed her readings. Shields at full strength, looks like they're expecting company. Path clear for now, but patrols inbound from the east. Double time it, Kira ordered, her breath steady despite the burn in her legs. They crested a ridge, the obelisk's base coming into view. A fortified plaza swarming with Zorathian sentries, their chitinous forms silhouetted against the glowing core. One wrong move and they'd be swarmed. Lena dropped to a knee, sighting through her scope. 3 tangos at the gate, maybe more inside. We can flank left, use the rock formations for cover. Tomas hacked into a nearby relay, his portable rig beeping softly. Got a window, jamming their sensors for 60 seconds. Go, go! They surged forward, shadows among the crystals. Kira's heart pounded. Each step a calculated risk on the treacherous ground. A shard snapped underfoot, sharp as glass, but the jam held. They reached the perimeter, Lena laying down suppressing fire as Thomas sliced the outer lock. Sparks flew, the door grinding open with a hiss. Inside, the air grew thicker, humming with energy. Consoles lined the walls, pulsing with holographic displays in the Zorathian script. Indecipherable, but the central generator was unmistakable. A throbbing sphere of contained plasma, shielded by interlocking fields. Kira signaled the charges. Doc and Lena moved to plant them while Thomas covered the entrance. But as the first explosive clicked into place, a low rumble echoed from the depths. Kira spun rifle up. Contact. Zorathian reinforcements poured from a side corridor, mandibles clicking in alarm, energy lances charging with a whine. The jam had bought them time, but not enough. Blaster fire erupted, scorching the walls as Kira dove behind a console. Fall back to secondary positions. Protect the dock. Thomas fired in controlled bursts, dropping the lead alien with a headshot that shattered its carapace. They're adapting, shields flickering on their end. Lena hauled Doc up, her arm straining under his gear as they retreated, the charges half set. A bolt grazed Kira's shoulder plate, heat blooming through the armor, but she pushed on, barking orders. The plan was fraying, the Nexus's defenses awakening like a beast roused from slumber. They had minutes, not seconds, before the swarm overwhelmed them, and the fleet above hung in the balance. Captain Elias Thorne gripped the railing of the bridge, his knuckles white against the humming metal. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the crew's faces in bloody hues. Status on the forward shields? He barked, eyes locked on the view screen where the alien fleet loomed like jagged teeth in the void. Lieutenant Mira Voss, ever the steady one, tapped furiously at her console. Holding at 47%, sir, but their plasma volleys are modulating frequencies. We're losing cohesion in the array. Her voice carried that calm edge, the kind that kept panic from spreading, but Thorne saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. From the tactical station, Sergeant Raj Patel spun his chair. Incoming torpedoes, 3 salvos. ETA 30 seconds. Recommend evasive pattern Delta 7. His words were clipped, efficient, the wit that usually lightened shifts buried under the weight of the moment. Thorne nodded sharply. Execute. And get me a firing solution on their command ship, the big one with the spines. If they're unanimous on violence, we'll make them regret the vote. The deck shuddered as thrusters fired, the Vanguard twisting through space like a dancer in a storm. Mira's fingers flew.
Shields dipping to 32%.
We can't take another direct hit. She glanced at Thorne, her cautious nature urging restraint, but he saw the resolve hardening. No speeches needed. The stakes were etched in every scar on the hull. Raj's console chimed. Torpedoes locked on target, firing all batteries. Railguns hot. Bursts of kinetic fury lanced out, silent in the vacuum but thunderous in their promise. One torpedo swarm detonated prematurely, a bloom of fire that lit the stars, but the others closed in relentless. The ship bucked, inertial dampeners straining. Thorne braced as a secondary explosion rocked the bulkhead behind them. Damage report. Smoke curled from a panel, acrid and insistent. Engineering's hit. Plasma conduit breach. Mira reported, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. Casualties incoming. We need to pull back. No, Thorne said, his bravery a quiet fire. We adapt. Krej reroute auxiliary power to the point defense grid. Mira, sync with the fleet. Tell them we're drawing fire to expose the flanks. Raj grinned fiercely, the first spark of their old camaraderie. On it, Cap. Let's show these council clowns what unanimous really means. The view screen flared as their railgun slugs punched through the alien command ship's armor. A gash of molten debris spraying into the black. Cheers erupted from the crew, short and raw. but Thorne's gaze lingered on the incoming reinforcements. Victory tasted like ash. The cost was already carving lines into their future. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest as the dropship shuddered through the atmosphere of Epsilon Eridani 4, the hull groaning against the wind shear. Alarms blared in the cockpit, red lights flashing across her visor. "Pilot, talk to me," she barked, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. "Ma'am, we're taking flak from those orbital defenses," Lieutenant Marco Reyes replied, fingers flying over the controls. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his jaw was set, eyes locked on the holographic display. The ship bucked again, a proximity warning screaming as debris from a nearby explosion peppered the shields. Elena glanced back at her squad, 6 Marines strapped in, faces grim under their helmets. Sergeant Kira Novak, the cautious one, was methodically checking her rifle's charge. Corporal Jamal Ortiz, ever the wit, cracked a grin. "If this is their welcome, I can't wait for the after-party." No one laughed, but it cut the tension like a knife. The dropship lurched downward, engines roaring as Reyes evaded another barrage. Elena's mind raced through the brief. The Xylari Council had glassed 3 human colonies in a show of unanimous resolve. Now, humanity's response fleet had punched through their lines, and her team was tasked with securing a forward outpost on this hellish rock, jagged obsidian spires and toxic storms that could strip paint from metal. "Touchdown in 30, Reyes announced, voice tight. The ground rushed up, a blackened plain scarred by plasma craters. The ship slammed down, ramps hissing open before the dust settled. Elena was first out, boots crunching on brittle regolith, rifle raised. The air recyclers in her suit hummed, filtering out the acrid bite of sulfur. Scans showed the outpost ahead, a squat Xylari bunker, its energy shields flickering under sustained orbital fire from the UNSC Vanguard. But as her team advanced in a wedge formation, motion sensors pinged, ambush. From the spires, insectoid drones swarmed, chitinous bodies glinting under the dual suns, laser emitters charging with a high-pitched whine. "Contact left," Kira shouted, dropping to a knee and unleashing a burst from her pulse rifle. Bolts of blue energy shredded the lead drone, sending shards spraying across the ground. Jamal flanked right, his grenade launcher thumping as an explosive round arced into the cluster. The blast wave knocked Elena back a step, but she recovered, sighting down her scope and picking off a flyer diving toward Reyes, who was covering their rear. The drones adapted fast, splitting into smaller groups, some burrowing into the soil to flank. One erupted beneath Ortiz, mandibles snapping at his leg armor. He stomped it flat with a curse, but the suit's integrity warning lit up his HUD. Microfractures forming. "These bugs don't quit," he growled, firing point blank. Elena keyed her comm. "Vanguard, we need that shield down now. We're pinned." Static crackled, then the orbital strike hit, a lance of white-hot plasma from the battleship above, vaporizing the bunker's dome in a blooming fireball. The shockwave flattened the remaining drones, leaving the air shimmering with heat haze. But victory tasted like ash. As they pushed forward, Kira's scanner beeped urgently. "Captain, readings off the charts, subterranean activity. They're tunneling under us." Elena nodded, signaling the team to form up tighter. The ground trembled faintly, a reminder that the Council's violence had roots deeper than any orbital fleet. Humanity would dig them out, one bunker at a time. But the cost was already carving lines into their faces. Inside the outpost, consoles sparked and died under hasty sabotage, but Elena planted the beacon anyway, linking it to the fleet's network. Jamal sealed the doors while Kira rigged charges on the tunnel entrances. "Early plan was to hold for evac," Elena said, voice low. "But we're adapting, hold and expand. Reyes, get the ship prepped for multiple runs." The pilot's voice came back, strained but resolute. "Copy that, ma'am. Bringing friends next time." As the first reinforcements streaked in overhead, Elena allowed herself a tight smile. The Council had chosen violence. Now in the dust and fire of Epsilon the 4, humanity was delivering it with precision, grit, and the unyielding bond of those who fought side by side. But the trembling earth whispered of more to come. A war that would demand everything they had. Captain Elena Reyes gripped the railing as the corvette shuddered, the hull groaning under the barrage of plasma fire. Sparks danced across the bridge console, and she barked orders over the din. "Evasive pattern Delta now. Jenkins, reroute power to forward shields." Lieutenant Jenkins, her wiry engineer with a perpetual grease streak on his cheek, slammed his fist on the auxiliary panel. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his voice stayed steady. Shields at 40% cap. That last hit fried the secondary emitters. We're leaking atmosphere and engineering. From the comm station, Dr. Lyra Voss, the team's xenolinguist turned reluctant tactician, leaned into her headset, her sharp eyes framed by silver-streaked hair, flicked between readouts. Incoming transmission from the Krell fleet. They're demanding surrender again. Say the Council's final judgment is upon us. Elena snorted, wiping blood from a shallow cut on her lip where shrapnel had nicked her. The Krell, those hulking insectoids from the Outer Rim, had ambushed their diplomatic envoy 3 jumps ago. What started as negotiations over disputed colonies had escalated when their High Council declared humanity a plague vector unworthy of galactic space. Unanimous vote for extermination. Now with their ship, the UNS Audacious, pinned against an asteroid field, the stakes were survival, pure and simple. Respond with our standard hail, Elena said, her voice like forged steel. Tell them humanity doesn't kneel. She turned to Jenkins. How long until we can jump? He glanced up, fingers flying over holographic keys. 15 minutes if I bypass the safeties. But it'll cook the core. One-way ticket, maybe. Lyra shot him a look, her cautious nature bubbling up. We can't risk the crew for a blind jump. The Krell have blockers in this sector. A fresh volley rocked the ship, alarms blaring as red lights bathed the bridge in crimson. Elena steadied herself, mind racing. The initial plan, slip through the asteroids to flank their pursuers, had backfired when a Krell scout jammed their sensors, turning the debris field into a death trap. 2 fighters already lost, their pilots' voices still echoing in her ears. Options? She demanded, eyes locking on her team. Jenkins rubbed his chin, the witty spark in his eyes dimmed by fatigue. We could vent the plasma from the exhaust ports, make a fake explosion, draw them in close. Then hit them with the railguns at point blank. Lyra shook her head, arguing under her breath. Too risky. Their hulls are armored like asteroids. We'd need precision. Elena nodded, the weight of command settling heavier. Outside, the void glittered with enemy silhouettes, their bioluminescent exoskeletons pulsing like predatory hearts. No empire of heroes here, just a scrappy human crew against a swarm that had glassed 3 worlds already. But surrender? Not while she breathed. Prep the vents, she decided. Lyra, spoof their sensors, make it look like we're breaking apart. Jenkins, arm the rails. We deliver what they asked for. As the ship twisted into the shadows of tumbling rock, the first wisps of fabricated plasma bloomed behind them, a deceptive flare against the stars. The Krell vessels veered, closing in like wolves to the kill. Elena's pulse thrummed. This gambit could end it all, or buy them the breath to fight another day. But in the silence of space, consequence waited in every shadow. Captain Reyes gripped the railing as the dropship shuddered through the atmosphere, flames licking the viewport like hungry tongues. Below, the alien city's spires pierced the haze, their crystalline tips glinting under the dual suns, targets that had cost too many pilots already. Lock in on the central nexus, she barked over the comms, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. Beside her, Engineer Patel hunched over the console, fingers flying across the jury-rigged interface, his usual wit silenced by the red alerts flashing across the screens. The ship bucked violently, anti-air fire stitching the sky with plasma bursts. Evasive! Reyes shouted. But Patel was already on it, rerouting power from life support to thrusters. The air grew thin, recyclers whining in protest, but the dropship twisted away from a direct hit, debris from a sister craft raining past like fiery confetti. We're blind on the east flank, Patel muttered, eyes narrowing at the tactical overlay. Their shields are adapting, those bastards are learning our patterns. Reyes nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. The Council's declaration had been a spark. Humanity's response a inferno, but down there in the heart of the Zephyron capital, it wasn't about grand strategy anymore. It was about the squad hitting the ground running, or not at all. She glanced back at the troops strapped in the hold. Marines Kowalski and Ling, faces set like stone, weapons primed. Kowalski, the cautious one, double-checked his maglocks. Ling, ever the firebrand, cracked her knuckles with a grin that didn't reach her eyes. 2 minutes to dirt. The pilot's voice crackled through. The ship dove sharper, gravity pressing them into seats as they skimmed the outer defenses. A low rumble built, the hull groaning under strain. Patel slammed a fist on the panel. Incoming missile lock, I've got a countermeasure, but it'll fry the nav systems. Reyes met his gaze. Do it, no hesitation. The explosion outside lit the cabin in strobing white, the ship spinning wildly before Patel wrestled it back. They slammed into the landing zone amid a cloud of dust and shattered crystal, ramps dropping before the engines fully spooled down. Reyes was first out, rifle up, scanning the fractured plaza. Alien sentries swarmed from the shadows, their chitinous forms scuttling with unnatural speed. Energy lances humming to life. "Flank left," she called, squeezing off controlled bursts that dropped the lead pair in sprays of ichor. Kowalski covered their six, his shots precise, picking off climbers scaling the debris. "They're funneling us toward the Nexus. It's a kill box." Ling charged forward, grenade launcher barking, blasting a barricade into rubble. "Then we make our own door." The air filled with the acrid tang of ozone and blood, each step a grind against the tide. Patel stayed back, patching the dropship's defenses while feeding real-time hacks to their HUDs. "Shields down on the tower, 30 seconds. But as they pushed, a deeper tremor shook the ground, the plaza cracking open like an eggshell. From the rift surged a hulking Guardian drone, its mandibles whirring, eyes glowing with targeting arrays. Reyes rolled aside as it lunged, its claws raking furrows in the stone where she'd stood. "Team on me," she yelled, circling the beast. Kowalski laid suppressive fire, bullets ricocheting off its armored hide. Ling flanked, dodging a swipe that crumpled a pillar. Patel's voice cut in. "Weak point, underbelly joint. I've got an EMP ready if you can expose it." Reyes feinted high, drawing its attention, then dove low with her combat knife, slashing at the seam. The drone reared, but Ling's boot slammed into its side, toppling it just enough. The EMP pulse hit like thunder, circuits frying in a cascade of sparks. The Guardian slumped, smoking, but not before its tail lash caught Kowalski, sending him sprawling with a gash across his leg. He grunted, pushing to his feet, blood soaking his pant leg. "I'm good. Keep moving." They pressed on, the Nexus looming ahead, its core pulsing with stolen human tech, reverse-engineered drives that had let the Xipheron strike first. Reyes planted the breaching charge, the timer ticking down amid the chaos. "This ends it," she said, more to herself than the team. As the explosion ripped through the base, alarms wailed across the city, but victory tasted bittersweet. Kowalski limped beside her, the wound a reminder. Every win carved something away. In the aftermath, as extraction birds screamed overhead, Patel patched Kowalski's comm. "Council's cheering from afar, but we're the ones bleeding." Reyes clapped his shoulder. "And we'll deliver more if they push." The squad boarded, the plaza burning behind them, one step closer to breaking the enemy's will. But the war's shadow stretched longer, scars etching deeper into the fight. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the bridge shuddered again, the hull groaning under another barrage from the Krell dreadnought. Alarms blared, red lights strobing across the faces of her crew. 12 souls packed into the cramped CIC of the UNS Endurance. She glanced at Lieutenant Marcus Hale, her tactical officer, whose fingers flew over the console, sweat beading on his brow despite the recycled air's chill. "Shields at 20%, Hale reported, voice steady but edged with strain. "Their plasma lances are adapting, punching through our countermeasures faster than we can recalibrate." Elena nodded, her jaw set. The Krell had ambushed them in the nebula's heart, their fleet materializing like ghosts from the ionized fog. What started as a diplomatic escort had devolved into this. A desperate evasion through asteroid fields and gas clouds, the Endurance's engines pushed to their limits. Her crew, veterans all handpicked for this first contact mission, had held together through boarding attempts and EMP strikes. But the dreadnought was a beast, its armor impervious to their railguns so far. "Divert auxiliary power to forward deflectors," she ordered, leaning forward. "And get me a firing solution on their ventral arrays. If we can't outrun it, we blind it." Ensign Kira Novak, the young engineer at comms, hesitated, her eyes flicking to the flickering holodisplay. "Captain, that leaves life support on minimal. We'll be breathing thin in 10 minutes. "Do it," Elena snapped, not unkindly. Kira was the cautious one, always calculating risks, but her quick fixes had saved them twice already. No time for debate now. The ship lurched as power surged, the deck plates humming beneath their feet. Hale's console lit up green. Solution locked. Firing. Twin railgun slugs erupted from the Endurance's prow, streaking through the void in silent fury. They slammed into the dreadnought's underbelly, sparks blooming like distant fireworks against its obsidian hull. For a heartbeat, the incoming fire slackened. The Krell arrays crippled, venting plasma in erratic bursts. "Direct hit!" Hale whooped, pumping a fist. But his grin faded as secondary sensors pinged. Wait, multiple signatures inbound. Fighters launching from their bays. Elena cursed under her breath. The nebula's interference had masked them until now. Dozens of Krell interceptors, sleek and predatory, swarmed toward the Endurance like a cloud of hornets. Her plan to slip away had bought seconds, not safety. "Helm evasive pattern Delta 7, she commanded, her mind racing. Chief Ramirez, the burly mechanic patched into the engine room via comms, chimed in from below decks. "Captain, reactors are redlining. One more hard burn and we might crack a manifold. I can jury-rig a plasma vent to mimic a warp signature. Bias a decoy run, but it'll fry the injectors." Elena weighed it. Ramirez was the grit in their machine, the man who'd welded hull breaches with his bare hands during the skirmish at Vega. Trust him to improvise. Make it happen, Chief. Novak, sync with him on the timings. As the interceptors closed, the Endurance twisted through the gas clouds, thrusters flaring in erratic bursts. Elena felt the G-forces press her into the chair, her vision tunneling for a moment. The first fighter volley grazed their flank, shearing off a sensor array and a spray of debris. Hale tracked the decoy's launch on his screen, a shimmering plume of superheated gas mimicking their exhaust trail. The Krell fighters splintered, half veering toward the ghost signature. But the dreadnought adjusted, its massive thrusters pivoting to pursue the real prey. "We've got a window," Elena said, her voice cutting through the din. "Full burn toward the asteroid belt. If we thread the needles there, their size works against them." The crew moved as one, a symphony of barked orders and flashing interfaces. Kira's hands trembled slightly as she routed the last power reserves, but her focus held. The Endurance surged forward, the nebula's purple haze parting around them. Yet as they barreled into the belt's outer fringes, a new alert wailed. Proximity warning. Not Krell. Something worse. A rogue asteroid tumbled free by the chaos, hurtling straight for their path. Elena's stomach dropped. Dodge it, and they'd expose their vulnerable side to the fighters. Ram it, and the ship might not survive. "Options?" she demanded, eyes locked on the closing rock. Hale swallowed. "We could—" The impact alarm screamed before he finished, the asteroid filling the viewport like judgment. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the console as the Icarus shuddered, alarms blaring like a chorus of angry ghosts. "Status," she barked, her voice cutting through the red-lit chaos of the bridge. Lieutenant Raj Patel, her unflappable engineer, wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over holographic displays. "Shields at 23%, ma'am. That last plasma barrage from the Krell dreadnought clipped us bad. Hull integrity holding, but if they fire again—" "We won't give them the chance," Elena interrupted, eyes locked on the tactical overlay. The Krell fleet loomed on the view screen, a swarm of angular behemoths blockading the Sol jump gate. Humanity's counteroffensive had pushed them back to this choke point, but the aliens' reinforcements had turned the tide. Her crew, Raj, the cautious tactician, Sergeant Kira Voss, the brash Marine with a scar across her cheek from the first contact skirmish, and Dr. Liam Chen, the witty xenobiologist who jury-rigged half their weapons from scavenged Krell tech, were all that stood between Earth and annihilation. Kira stormed onto the bridge, mag boots clanging. "Boarding parties are repelled, Captain. Lost 2 squads to those tentacled freaks in the vents. We need to vent the lower decks or something drastic." Elena nodded, mind racing. The plan had been simple. Slip through the blockade using Liam's EMP disruptor to blind their sensors. But the Krell had adapted, their bioships regenerating faster than expected. Now, with the Icarus limping and comms jammed, isolation clawed at them. "Liam, talk to me. That disruptor, can we overload it for a bigger pulse?" Liam leaned against a bulkhead, his usual smirk strained. "Overload? Sure, if you want to fry our own systems too. But pair it with the auxiliary reactors. We could create a feedback loop in their neural nets, turn their hive mind against itself." Raj's eyes widened. "That's suicide. The reactors aren't shielded for that output." "Better than dying slow," Kira growled, cracking her knuckles. "I'm in. Give me a team to plant the charges manually if it fails." Elena weighed it, the weight of 1 billion lives on her shoulders. The Council had voted for peace until the Krell glassed Luna colony. Now humanity's response was unanimous, deliver hell, but this? It meant sacrificing the Icarus, their last bastion. "Do it, Raj, reroute power. Liam, calibrate the pulse." Kira, you're on breach detail. Get to their command ship if we open a window. The ship groaned as Raj initiated the sequence, sparks dancing across panels. Elena strapped in, the hum of overtaxed engines vibrating through her bones. On the view screen, Krell fighters peeled off, locking missiles. Incoming, Raj shouted. Evasive, Elena commanded, yanking the yoke. The Icarus twisted, a dagger in the void, dodging the first volley by a hair. A second hit rocked them, lights flickering. Kira braced in the turbolift, her squad muttering prayers in half a dozen languages. Liam's voice crackled over comms from engineering. Pulse charging, 10 seconds to critical. The Krell dreadnought fired its main cannon, a lance of violet energy searing space. Elena rolled the ship, but the edge caught them. Consoles exploded in showers of shrapnel. Pain lanced her arm, but she held course. Now! The disruptor fired, an invisible wave rippling out. Krell ships stuttered, their formations fracturing as the hive link severed. Fighters plowed into each other, blooming into silent fireballs. The dreadnought listed, its weapons powering down. Kira's team launched from the hangar, grapples latching onto the enemy hull. We're in, she reported, last bolter barking as they carved through defenses. But victory soured fast. Alarms wailed anew, Krell reinforcements warping in from hyperspace. Elena's vision blurred from blood loss. Raj, get us clear. Liam. A secondary explosion rocked engineering, static, then nothing. Kira's voice broke through. Captain, their core's destabilizing. We can detonate it, take the whole fleet, but we're not getting out. Elena's jaw tightened. The cost, her ship, her friends. But Earth waited. Do it, Sergeant. For humanity. The channel went dead. On the view screen, the dreadnought erupted in a chain reaction, swallowing half the blockade in white-hot fury. The Icarus drifted, scarred but alive as the path to Sol cleared. Elena slumped, the bridge silent save for the hum of failing life support. They'd won the gate, but the war raged on, and the Krell would remember. Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the bridge vibrating through her bones as the Indomitable's engines pushed them into the heart of the Krellian blockade. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the faces of her crew in stark relief. Status on the forward shields? She barked, eyes locked on the view screen where enemy cruisers loomed like jagged shadows against the nebula's glow. Lieutenant Reyes, her tactical officer, wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over the console. Holding at 60%, ma'am. But that dreadnought's plasma lances are chewing through us. One more hit and we're venting atmosphere. His voice carried the edge of a man who'd seen too many simulations turn real, but there was no panic, just the grim focus Ilara had come to rely on. She nodded, glancing at Dr. Lena Carr, the xenobiologist who'd been dragged into this mess when the council first voted for extermination. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she monitored the hacked Krellian comms, her wit usually a shield now buried under exhaustion. Any chance we can jam their targeting arrays? Buy us a window? Lena's eyes flicked up sharp despite the fatigue. Already rerouting power to the disruptor. But it'll blind our own sensors for 30 seconds. You sure you want to fly blind in this soup? The nebula's tendrils swirled outside, a deceptive beauty hiding sensor ghosts and ambush points. Alara's jaw tightened. The council's unanimous decree had lit the fuse. Those tentacled bureaucrats in their crystal spires, convinced humanity was a pest to be eradicated. But out here it was her ship, her people, delivering the payback. Do it, Reyes, plot an evasive vector through the debris field. Use the wrecks for cover. The order rippled through the bridge. Reyes punched in the course, the ship lurching as thrusters fired. Lena initiated the jam, and suddenly the view screen went dark, stars and threats alike vanishing into static. Ilara felt the weight of it, the silence louder than any alarm. Her mind raced. If this failed, the Indomitable would join the drifting hulks, another tally for the Council's arrogance. A jolt rocked the deck, inertial dampeners straining. Incoming debris, someone shouted from engineering feeds. Ilara braced, the chair creaking under her. In the void, unseen, the Krellian ships hunted, their bioluminescent signatures pulsing like predators in the deep. Then a flicker, sensors rebooting. The view screen cleared to chaos. 2 enemy cruisers entangled in the debris, their hulls sparking from collisions they'd never seen coming. Reyes whooped, a rare crack in his caution. Direct hit on their lead ship. Shields down to 20. Ilara allowed herself a thin smile. Target their engines. Fire all tubes. Missiles streaked out, painting the black with fire trails. The dreadnought shuddered on impact, venting plasma in a brilliant arc. But as the cheers rose, a new alert pierced the din. Reinforcements warping in from the flank, the Council's full might converging. Lena leaned forward, voice steady. They're adapting, Ilara. Our jam bought time, but they've got numbers. We need to punch through to the core world, or this is just a skirmish. Ilara stood, resolve hardening like forged steel. The cost was already high. Half her squadron gone in the initial push, faces she'd never forget. But humanity didn't yield. They adapted, they endured. Helm, full burn to the rendezvous point. Let's show them what unanimous really means. The ship surged forward, engines roaring defiance into the stars. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair, the bridge lights flickering as another shockwave rattled the hull of the UNS Vanguard. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, but she tuned them out, eyes locked on the tactical display where the alien fleet, those sleek, iridescent behemoths from the Krell Dominion, closed in like a noose. Her crew moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, fingers flying over consoles, voices clipped and urgent. Shields at 40%, Lieutenant Rao reported from Tactical, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. Their plasma lances are punching through faster than we can recharge. Elena nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. The Krell had underestimated humanity's resolve, voting unanimously for subjugation after the skirmish at Epsilon Eridani. But humanity? We'd voted with our actions. Every ship, every pilot, every engineer throwing everything into this counteroffensive. No speeches, just steel and fire. Divert auxiliary power to forward arrays, she ordered. And get me a firing solution on their flagship. If we can't outrun them, we'll make them regret chasing us. Across the bridge, Ensign Leela Torres, the young comms officer with a wit sharper than her uniform, patched through to the Allied flotilla. Vanguard to all human vessels, Titan formation. We're not dying alone out here. Her transmission carried the grit of someone who'd lost her homeworld to the Krell's first wave, but there was no bitterness, only focus. The ship lurched as a Krell corvette unleashed a barrage, hull plating groaning under the strain. Sparks erupted from a nearby panel, and a junior engineer scrambled to seal it, his hands black with grease. Elena felt the vibration through her boots, a reminder that this wasn't a simulation. Real lives hung in the balance, her crews, the civilians back on the colony ships trailing behind, the billions who'd perish if the Dominion broke through to Sol. Captain, Rao interrupted, his eyes widening at the scan. They're deploying boarding pods. Looks like a full assault on our ventral base. Elena's jaw tightened. The Krell prided themselves on their bioengineered shock troops, hulking things with chitin armor and plasma claws. Unanimous violence indeed, but humans had grit forged in centuries of survival, from asteroid belts to boardroom brawls. Seal all hatches, she commanded. Arm the Marines. And Rao, target those pods mid-flight. I want them turned to slag before they touch us. The bridge thrummed with activity. Lila relayed orders to the fighter bays, her voice cutting through the din. Scramble all wings. Give those bastards a taste of kinetic rounds. Elena could picture the pilots launching into the void, their birds dancing through the debris field, turning the Krell's advance into a graveyard of twisted metal. A direct hit rocked the Vanguard, consoles shattering in a shower of glass. Elena was thrown forward, tasting blood from a split lip, but she hauled herself back up. Pain was just fuel now. Status. Pod inbound, impacting in 30 seconds, Rao shouted. Fighters engaging, but they're swarming. Elena hit the intercom. Marines, this is the captain. Hold the line. Remember New Mumbai. We don't yield. The words weren't a pep talk. They were a vow. Her Marines, led by Sergeant Hale, a cautious giant with a penchant for improvised explosives, would turn the bays into kill zones. The deck shuddered as the pod latched on, breaching alarms wailing. Through the internal cams, Elena watched the chaos unfold. Krell warriors pouring out, all segmented fury and glowing veins, met by human fire. Hale's team laid down suppressing fire, grenades blooming in orange fireballs that lit the corridors like hellish dawns. One Krell lunged, its claw raking a Marine's armor, but Hale was there, slamming a jury-rigged charge into its maw. The explosion painted the bulkhead red and black. Push them back, he bellowed, his voice a gravelly anchor amid the screams. Back on the bridge, Elena's hands clenched. The flanking maneuver was working. The Krell flagship was exposed now, its escorts tangled in the fighter melee. Fire everything we've got, she said, her tone ice-cold. Torpedoes streaked out, silent hunters in the black. They struck true, the flagship erupting in a cascade of debris, its core breaching in a brilliant flare. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short and fierce, cut off by Lila's urgent ping. Captain, reinforcements, Krell dreadnoughts jumping in system. They're committing fully. Elena's gaze hardened. The cost was mounting. Ships lost, crews vaporized, the colony fleet vulnerable. But retreat wasn't in the human lexicon. Not when the Council's vote echoed across the stars, demanding our extinction. Plot an intercept course, she said. We're ending this here. For Earth. For all of us. The Vanguard surged forward, engines straining into the heart of the storm. The battle wasn't over, far from it. But in that moment, with her crew unbroken and the stars burning around them, Elena knew humanity's answer was resounding. Violence, delivered without mercy or regret. Elena gripped the armrest of the command chair, her knuckles white against the worn leather. Alarms blared through the bridge, red lights pulsing like a frantic heartbeat, but she tuned them out, eyes locked on the main view screen. The alien dreadnought loomed ahead, its hull scarred from the barrage they'd unleashed in the last hour, but still firing, plasma bolts slicing through the void toward her battered frigate, the Indomitable. Shields at 12%, Jax called from his station, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. He slammed a fist on the console, rerouting power with a frenzy of keystrokes. That last hit fried the auxiliary generators. We're running on fumes here, Cap. She nodded, not taking her gaze off the enemy. The Council's fleet had come for annihilation, their unanimous decree echoing in every intercepted transmission. Humanity was a pestilence to be eradicated. But they'd underestimated the fire in human veins. Elena's crew, her family, forged in the crucible of this war, had clawed their way through ambushes, jury-rigged repairs, and impossible odds. Now with the dreadnought's weapons priming for a killing shot, it all came down to this. Kira, status on the boarding team? Elena barked into the comm. Static crackled, then Kira's voice cut through, laced with exertion and the unmistakable grit of someone who'd stared death down too many times. We're in their engineering bay, ma'am. These Xeno bastards have more fail-safes than a vault, but we've got a path to the core. Just keep them distracted a little longer. Distracted. Elena almost laughed. The Indomitable was a ghost ship now. Hull breaches venting atmosphere. Half the crew medevaced to the escape pods they'd launched as decoys. But distraction was what they did best. Humanity's oldest trick, turning desperation into deception. Helm evasive pattern Delta 7, she ordered. The ship groaned as thrusters fired, twisting away from an incoming volley. A bolt grazed the flank, shaking the deck like an earthquake. Sparks flew from an overhead panel and Jax cursed, patching it with a makeshift sealant from his toolkit. The alien ship was a behemoth, its design all sleek curves and energy fields, a testament to their technological arrogance. They'd chosen violence first, glassing colonies and blockading trade routes, convinced their superiority was divine. But Elena's plan, cobbled together in the frantic hours after the Council's declaration, had exploited that very hubris. Bait them into a chase through the asteroid field, wear down their shields with guerrilla strikes, then slip a team aboard while the main fleet mopped up the stragglers. It had backfired spectacularly when the dreadnought's escorts pinned them. Jax's clever hack on the comms array had jammed their coordination, buying time but at the cost of their warp drive. Stranded, outgunned, they'd fought like cornered wolves. Core access in sight, Kira reported, her breath ragged over the line. Explosions boomed in the background. Breaches, fights, the chaos of close-quarters combat. Charges set. But they've got reinforcements swarming. We need that extraction window now. Elena glanced at the tactical display. The dreadnought's fighters were circling back, a swarm of hornets ready to sting. Her ship couldn't take another pass. Jax, can we give her that window? He grinned, wild and unhinged, fingers dancing over the controls. One old-school slingshot maneuver coming up. Hold on to your seats, folks. The engineer diverted every scrap of power to the forward arrays, not for weapons but for a gravitational pulse, a trick borrowed from ancient mining tech. The Indomitable surged, engines screaming as it latched onto the dreadnought's own mast to whip around in a tight arc. Alarms wailed, structural integrity failing, but they broke free, positioning perfectly for Kira's evac. Go, 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 Elena urged. Kira's team burst from the airlock, Marines in battered exosuits hauling each other aboard amid gunfire. The last one in was Kira herself, dragging a wounded comrade, her face smeared with alien blood. The hatch sealed with a hiss and the ship lurched away. On screen, the dreadnought flickered. Then a chain reaction bloomed from its core, white-hot fury erupting in silence. Debris scattered like shattered glass, the massive vessel fracturing into glowing fragments. Cheers erupted on the bridge, raw and exhausted. Jack slumped back, wiping his brow. We did it. Holy hell, we did it. Elena allowed herself a breath, but her eyes lingered on the wreckage. The Council's flagship gone, their fleet in disarray, broadcasts already fracturing with doubt. Humanity had delivered unanimously, relentlessly. But the cost. Empty stations, ghosts in the corridors, colonies scarred beyond repair. Victory tasted like ash, a reminder that violence begat only more shadows. As the Indomitable limped toward the rally point, Elena stood, clapping Jax on the shoulder before heading to check on the wounded. The war wasn't over, but they'd earned this moment. And in the quiet aftermath, that was enough.